What makes a tiger roar? Experts think tigers roar primarily to communicate with other tigers. Sometimes they roar to attract attention or claim their territory. And some tigers, they roar to encourage younger tigers to try something new. My name is Kristen Fraser. I graduated from Trinity in 1991. I've spent my career as a journalist interviewing newsmakers from around the world. On What Makes a Tiger Roar, I get to talk to Trinity alum about their unique career pathways. We will identify those key moments in their lives that make them who they are today. Today, I'm excited to talk with Matthew Reedy. Matthew graduated from Trinity in 1979 with a computer science degree. His love of programming was his ticket into the startup world. Working in small companies helped him to get a chance to do a little bit of everything. He's learned to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. The result, opening up his world to possibilities he could have never imagined back when he started his career. Matthew has a lot on his plate these days, from getting certified as an airline mechanic to working on an app that helps recovering addicts, and he is also the entrepreneur in residence at Trinity. Hi, Matthew. You're a busy man, so thank you for making time for this episode of What Makes a Tiger Roar.
Hi, Kristen. It's great to see you, and my pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So I know you've been in San Antonio for most of your life, but let's go back to when you were a kid. How many times did you move before you were 17?
I moved 11 times before I was 17. Yes, it was a crazy life of being the child of someone in the military. And every time my dad got a new assignment, we packed up the house and moved. But yes, thankfully we stayed all in the U.S. We didn't go overseas anywhere, but yes, 11 times.
What was that like, you moving from place to place, having to start over again?
It was a challenge for me, I think, because I'm naturally an introvert, but of course, moving that often in order to make friends, I had to force myself to become more of an extrovert. That was always the toughest part for me, was showing up in a summertime in a new city and then starting a brand new school. And okay, I don't know anybody, how do I figure out how to make friends and be social? Definitely think it helped grow me as an individual. But yeah, as a kid, it was a tough time.
So is that how you ended up at Trinity? Is that connection to San Antonio?
It is, yes. So I started doing computer programming actually when I was in high school. My previous high school in Virginia, in Alexandria, Virginia, taught us how to actually program in BASIC as a part of a math course. And so when I moved to San Antonio, I knew I wanted to study computer science. And so I actually visited UT Austin and I visited Texas A&M and just felt they were such large schools, just so big. And I was already, feeling uncomfortable. And so when my dad offered Trinity as an alternative, I said, that sounds great to me. Much smaller school, very personalized education. And so, yeah, it was just being in local proximity here to Trinity and my dad making the offer.
So what was it like in the mid-70s to be in the world of computer science? I mean, I think it's, you were there at the cusp. You were there at the beginning.
It was wild and crazy, I will tell you. Things were changing, as you know how fast things change now, right? They were changing just as fast or maybe faster back then. Yes. So literally in the course of the 4 years that I was at Trinity, we progressed from using a big mainframe computer with punched cards all the way to a terminal to a very small personal computer that, where we were actually doing programming on that. So yeah, it was just a great time to be in the computer industry as it was evolving so quickly.
Wild. So you were really there from sort of its inception to, I mean, it's really not that far off from where we are today when you think about it. I mean, it's a phone and not a computer anymore, but still, right?
Yes, exactly. The technology was just increasing so quickly. Like I said, the computer that was here in Halsell, the Halsell building was where the big mainframe was. And, and then to just, go from there to kind of what they called mini computers at the time, which were sort of departmental sized computers, and then all the way to PCs, and just to go all through that in such a short amount of time, 4 or 5 years, it was fun.
So when you started at Trinity, what did you sort of envision your career would be? I mean, I think we've all sort of put in our mind, this is what we're going to do. Usually doesn't stay that way, but what did you think?
When I first started at Trinity, computer science students were very often going either into academia or into scientific research. So maybe they went to work for NASA or, some other kind of scientific research. That wasn't really on the top of my mind. So thankfully, when my sophomore year at Trinity, my sister heard about a programming job at a very small company, two-person software company, and they were writing small business applications, financial applications. And once I took that job and started writing those small applications, that was for me. It was like, okay, this is really where I like to do, my programming.
So you walk out a well-rounded computer science coder. You're already working in coding. What was that first job out of school like?
I was recruited away actually to the second one, and I'm trying to think of I think the attraction was the person who was one of the founders recruited me, and it was just his personality and his passion for what he was working on. And so I helped him out of we kind of collided in a public place, and he was having a problem with his computer, and I kind of helped him get it straightened out. And that's when he offered me his card, and he says, "Hey, if you ever want a job, come, give me a call." But when he told me about what he was involved in, the kind of software he was writing and what his plans were, I think that was what attracted me to join that company. And again, it was another 3-person company. I was the third person to join, and it was a fun journey.
So that number 3 keeps coming up, right? You're number 3 employee at the first company, number 3 at the second, but this company went a different way. So can you tell me a little bit about that experience and what the company was like and what you learned and what you found out about yourself?
So when I first joined, I was really just programming, just writing some software, but very quickly my boss pulled me into other jobs. And so, for example, I had to go out on a sales call with a salesperson. And so this kind of introduced me, to the whole sales process and how do I answer questions when people have them? How do I interact with prospective customers, things like that. Being a small company, I got exposed to the financial aspect of it. I got exposed to HR. I got exposed to, management. Through the first 4 or 5 years that I was there, I was actually hiring employees to work for me. And so just really
all
kind of
things that are part of being number 3 in a company, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. You get to go through all those journeys. So just to watch the company grow from not only in a number of employees, but also in terms of customers and in terms of revenue and possibilities was just exciting to me.
How did you go about growing with the change? Because it really is all about learning from that experience and making more out of it.
You said the key word there, it was learning. And I think that's what kept me going. And it's also what excited me the most. So when I first started at that second company, I was programming on one computer in one language. And very quickly as the company grew, it was all those learning steps and just getting the chance to be exposed to more new technology, more new techniques, more new customers, what they were interested in. So just that continual learning process, I think, is what really kept me going and really motivated me to continue trying to be comfortable.
And so what happens as something like that grows? I mean, what happens, right? When you got something, it's successful. And then in this sort of world of like burgeoning entrepreneurship, it goes away, right?
It can. It certainly can. And in this case, it did. Yes. So the owners of that company, the founders, decided to actually sell the business. So after I was there for about 4 years, we were doing fairly well. We were still growing pretty well. And one of the clients that we had was another software company. And I think that company just came in and made an offer to just buy us. And so I'm glad that the owners did that. And what the benefit for me was they had actually given me a small amount of stock, some stock options in the company. So when it got acquired, I was able to get stock in the acquiring company, which was publicly traded at the time. So it actually turned into a little bit of money. We created a business out of nothing, something out of nothing. And then all of a sudden it turned into a financial reward. And I was like, this is amazing. This is really incredible. I would like to do that again.
So at this point, did you consider yourself an entrepreneur or did that come later?
It came shortly thereafter. So when the company I was working for was sold, the acquiring company was based up in New York, and they wanted to move everybody up to New York. And I was married at the time, and I already had one child. And so I knew my wife was born and raised in San Antonio. I knew we were not going to move to New York. So I was kind of looking around at what's the next thing. Where should I go from here? And actually got a call from 2 of my coworkers at that company. And they said, hey, we've got this interesting idea for a new software business. Would you be interested in joining us and being the technology person to put it all together? The 2 of them one was a finance CPA type, and the other was a sales guy, just a very long-term sales guy. And so I thought of the complementary nature of the skill sets, that we brought to the table. And I said, heck yeah, let's give this a try. And as I thought through all that, it was like, well, I'm going to try this for 6 months or a year. And if it doesn't work out, I can always go get a job somewhere else. But that was the point where I realized I was an entrepreneur. It was like, I'm, joining with two other people, and we're just literally going to create this business on a piece of paper and see what we can make happen.
That's pretty amazing. So how has that sort of moved into the things that you have done since then?
It really drove everything. So that company that I started, which was the third company I worked for, grew dramatically. We were in the right place at the right time, and we doubled in size every year. So between the mid 80s and the early 90s, we grew to 170 employees, and we were doing $20 million a year in revenue. And so it was just really an exciting kind of rocket ship ride. But then it got actually so large that the introvert in me was, struggling a little bit and thinking maybe I want to go back to something smaller. And so having done that first startup, it's made the second startup so much easier, right? It was like, okay, well, I think I can leave this business now and I can go start something else, doing something different. But because I had all that experience and I felt the, credibility or, just the courage to actually go do it a second time. And then I did it a third time, and now I'm actually working on a fourth time. Yeah, it definitely, that first one really launched me into the career.
Well, I know that you have been helping out alumni. And so I want to know a little bit more about this Startup 101 class that you did for alumni, sort of how it came to be and what the purpose of the class was.
Sure. This class was put together by the Alumni Career Engagement Department, brand new department here at Trinity, with Terrace Tiller and Nina Roldan. And they felt that one way to reconnect with alumni was to find those who may be in between careers, those who may be trying to decide, do I want to stay in this career long term? Do I want to try something different? And they thought actually having a class on how to do a startup just from the get-go, okay, I've got an idea for a business. How do I even put that together? How do I make it into something that's real? And so it was, they approached me about it, and I said, I would be happy to. I've done 3 startups already, working on a 4th one. And so happy to share my experience. And it wound up just being a fun class. We didn't have a large attendance, but we had a great conversation. We really sat down kind of one-on-one and went through a lot of the issues and the challenges with getting a business started, just the legal aspects of it, the logistics aspect of it, the business side of it, financing, marketing, all of those things. So it was just really fun to put that class together and share it with those alumni.
And in that sort of vein of one thing leads to another, you're on campus, you stop by, see how the entrepreneurial program is, and you're looking to see what they had. What was like being back on campus and sort of seeing where the entrepreneurial edge of Trinity has gone and how it's advanced? What was that like, and what happened with that?
It was very cool. It really was. I think back actually when it wasn't too far into my startup career that I actually was doing a lot of mentoring, and I would actually come back to Trinity occasionally in the computer science department, and I would teach a class for a day or something like that. So in the back of my mind was always this thought that, I think it might be kind of cool to come back and teach at Trinity. I mean, I had such a great experience here. I'd love to share that with folks. So yeah, I'm back on campus, and I'm talking to Carmen, the director of the Entrepreneurship Center here, and I'm saying, hey, if you ever have any openings in the department, I said I might very well be interested. She said, well, we don't have anything now, but just keep an eye out. So promptly forgot kind of all about that. And while I was finishing up my aircraft maintenance education and certification, I saw this job posting pop up on LinkedIn from the Entrepreneurship Center. And it was this job called Entrepreneur in Residence. And as I read through it, I thought, wow, that just really kind of describes my whole career as I've done all of these startups and all of these new experiences and so on. And I just thought that I'd be happy to share that with some of my classmates and fellow students here at Trinity.
There is something really exciting about seeing a job listing that you think was written for you.
There sure is. And like I said, it was, as I read it, I kept thinking, okay, check. It was listing off all the responsibilities and things you had to do, and then all the requirements, the prerequisites. I was check. And so it just really felt like it was targeted to me. I wasn't having much luck in the aircraft maintenance arena. I actually applied to 3 different jobs, and nobody called me back, and I'm not sure why. And so I was glad at least that Carmen, responded to my email and interviewed me for the position.
So what's that like, being the entrepreneur in residence? What's this past year been like?
Been another great learning experience. When I joined, there were really 3 primary responsibilities responsibilities that I was directed to have. So one was to work with our students that compete in our Stumberg business plan pitch competition and really just mentor them and help them shape their pitches for their startup businesses and so on. The second was to work in the accelerator program. We have a summer 10-week program where we take entrepreneurial students through that whole process of how do you create a business? How do you create something out of nothing? And then the third thing is the venture mentoring service, which is a free service that Trinity offers to students and faculty and alumni, where we join them up with entrepreneurs in the local community who will provide mentorship and guidance and advice for them. So I get to oversee that program as well, working with new mentors and finding students who are wanting to be entrepreneurs, and then how do we connect, how do we match make them, and how do we get them the best advice.
Oh, that's very exciting. So you're not just the Trinity entrepreneur in resident right now, but you're also working on an app. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
I can. The founder of the company, it's called Addiction Resource Systems. The founder worked for me way back in that very first startup that I did many, many years ago, back in the year.
My gosh, Matt, it just always keeps coming back around.
Comes around. He contacted me several years ago and told me about an idea he had for an app. And this is a conversational app for recovering alcoholics and narcotic addicts. So he himself is a recovering alcoholic. And he woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning one day with this just intense craving to go down to the liquor store and buy some liquor. And he looked over on his bookshelf and saw an Amazon Echo Dot over there and thought to himself, gee, wouldn't it be great if I could just say, hey, Alexa, I'm having a craving, and Alexa would talk him out of the craving. And so that was the seed of the idea. We put together a product, a conversational mobile app. We actually launched it on the app stores in 2021, and then really began trying to find out where the right market for that product is. And we're now working, we have a pilot going with a postpartum women's clinic. So women who were addicted and have had children now, and they're trying to get into recovery. And so we're working through all the kinks of that, and we're hoping that that will actually turn into the real legitimate business.
It also feels like it fits into some things that seem at your core, that you want to be beneficial and helpful to people, that seems to be something too that sort of pulls through a lot of your endeavors.
I've always loved that about the software that I created, was that I actually had customers for it, right? So I always had people that were using it and would tell me what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, and how I could make it better. And so, yeah, this is very much in that way. My mom, as a matter of fact, died when I was 17 from alcohol. And so it was very personal for me when my friend approached me and said, hey, can you help me put this together? And so, yeah, I do feel pretty strongly that this is something that society could benefit from. I don't think it's the be all to end all. In other words, I don't think by itself this app is going to, be the sole reason why someone's in recovery. But I sure hope that, a year from now or 2 years from now, I'll get an email or a message from one of our customers saying, hey, I just want you to know the app really helped me through a difficult time, and now I'm on my way to recovery. So that's really what I'd like to see happen.
So if you sort of look back for you, what are the big pivotal moments and the big ideas that you think have really helped you get to where you are today?
I think for me, the single biggest point was that second company that I joined, where 3 people growing to 50, and then the owners of the company sold it. That was just such a huge eye-opener for me. I didn't really think about myself as an entrepreneur before that. And then to just see how not only did the owners benefit financially, but a lot of the employees did as well. That just felt good to me, that here we started with this idea for some software. We found great customers who used it, and we built it into this business that benefited a lot of people. That was probably the pivotal time in my career that just said, hey, you have a talent for this, you have a skill for this, you're good at it. Why don't you keep trying and see what else you can do?
And all that started from being a computer programmer.
Just starting out being a programmer. That's all I was. I really was just, heads down and just enjoyed making the computer do things that it hadn't done before, and just learning as much as I could about new languages, about new computer systems, and just going forward as quickly as I could.
I think a lot of this does come back to making the uncomfortable comfortable, but I know that you've been sort of settled in San Antonio, but that you still keep moving.
I do. And my wife, she doesn't complain. She goes along very well. But yeah, she does notice about every maybe 3 or 4 years, we'll find another reason to move to a new house, all in San Antonio. We've definitely stayed here. But Yeah, usually there's a reason. When she and I got married, this is my second wife, we had a blended family. And so we had 3 young kids, relatively young, still at home. And so we moved into a bigger home for the kids. And then, of course, the kids grew and they all went off on their own. So then we moved into a smaller home. And then one of the kids boomeranged back. And so then we had to move into even another smaller home. So there was no room for that one. And then we decided to, move into, again, kind of a smaller home, but in a different neighborhood. And then we moved into another small home in another neighborhood and so on. So yeah,
Moving is still part of it.
it's all part of the mindset. And I think moving 11 times before I was 17, just, so ingrained in me right now.
Now, it's been so great getting to know you. This is really exciting to hear about your pathway and all the things that you've done in such a great career.
Well, Kristen, thank you for the kind words. And it was such a pleasure to meet you as well. And I so appreciate what you're doing for Trinity and on behalf of the alumni. It was great to be here. Thank you for your time.
I'm Kristen Fraser. A big thanks for today's guest, Matthew Reedy. If you want to connect with Matthew, check him out on LinkedIn. You can connect with him there. He'd love to chat with you. It is always so great to hear about the journeys Taggers make after leaving Trinity. Matthew is a great reminder that there's a lot of value in figuring out how to be comfortable with the uncomfortable in our lives. If you are a Trinity alum, visit trinity.edu/alumni for information and resources, and specifically check out the Alumni Career Engagement tab for professional development events and support. I know I'm going to be keeping an eye out for the next time they offer Matthew's Startup 101 class. Special thanks to fellow alum Diego Flores and Corridor Creative for editing this episode. Thanks for joining me for this episode of What Makes a Tagger Roar, a production of Trinity University Alumni Relations Office.